All right, a special election in Tennessee and a dangerously crazy blonde. Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Polls close 1 hour. A special election for a House seat in Tennessee. District 7 is typically solid red. Trump plus 22 1 year ago. But an off-year special election drives turnout so low that anything is possible. And in Tennessee tonight, that anything is a 36-year-old single white female named Afton Ben. An angry, blonde, radically left state rep who embodies the modern, defiant, liberal white girl that has become such a threat to this republic. Afton is privileged. She grew up comfortably in Knoxville, draped in all the trappings of capitalism, now seeking to destroy it. It is a common story. She demands the end of all policing, government-run health care, Medicaid for all illegal immigrants. She believes marriage and children are toxic for women. And prior to running for office, she invaded the Republican governor's office, and it looked a bit like this. There she is, dragged out of the office, screaming after she got into the State House. Afton went on to support bills to allow murderers and rapists to vote, removing all rights from unborn children, even at full term. They are not people, she says, and tripling the minimum wage in Tennessee to $20 an hour to just destroy all business. That's what Afton Ben supports. She does not live on this same planet with us. No matter what the issue, Afton picks the most radical and destructive stance. Here she is on policing.
Well, I'm currently involved in a transformative justice seminar. And so it's how to imagine a world without police and what that looks like and what community mechanisms look like, how people can not police themselves, but what, for example, if you experience sexual assault, like what is the reconciliation process and what does transformative justice look like? Because as we know, like you can't take those things to court. Like, you know, our legal system is terrible when it comes to retributions.
Imagine a world without police, she says, and suggests reformative justice and chooses rape as the example. The legal system handles rape with the terrible method of retribution, she says. She wants to end imprisonment for rape. She wants therapy sessions. Women literally would not be able to leave the house if this were ever attempted. It would be open season on all women. If rapists knew the punishment was a weekly Skype session with a half-assed government-paid shrink, can you imagine what would happen to sexual assault in this country, the numbers? Brain-dead progressives like Afton Ben are suddenly everywhere in this country with ideas just as idiotic as the one that I just described. Let's stop putting people in prison for rape and just see what happens. No matter the issue, they find the most insane position and they go full throttle. After a trans school shooter murdered several little kids and staff at a Christian school in Nashville, where she would represent, Afton made it very clear her only concern in the aftermath of this was for the often violent trans community.
In the wake of the Covenant shooting and the disclosure that the Covenant shooter was trans, I was pulled into a chat with other trans organizers. They would show up at these Trans Day of Visibility events and threatening our trans kids. We need more people talking about the protections for trans kids in our trans communities at the legislature every day. I promise to carry a trans Bill of Rights.
I didn't hear anything about the 3 little kids that were slaughtered that day or the teachers, but this kind of madness is actually a product of privilege, what this young woman is. When prosperity, safety, stability all become entitlements, we breed these kinds of people. When the American dream and everything that we have is just the boring status quo that we all expect, you find the perfect breeding ground for these cancerous pawns of Marxist self-destruction, and Afton Ben is a stage 4 patient of that cancer. Afton Ben chose not to be grateful for the privilege of her life. She resented it, fixated on perceived injustices, seeking out anything she could find, obsessed with finding inequity in our society, ready to burn the whole system down for change, unable to understand that this flawed system she hates so much is actually the best around, and her ideas would have us eating each other in just a short amount of time. So she seeks the socialist utopia, as so many before her have done, too ignorant to understand that what we have is very vulnerable, seeking power in this election. Her campaign is a total ripoff of Zohran Mamdani's in New York, obsessed completely with affordability.
Guys, the reason they're coming after me so hard is because they don't have a plan to address what the rising cost of healthcare, the rising cost of groceries, and that's why they're coming after me. And you know what? Such is life.
Such is life. As Trump said today, Democrats right now are just screaming affordability. It's the only thing they have to talk about. They have no viable plan to solve that issue, totally ignorant to the fact that raising taxes and funding more wasteful government programs to hand out more of your money is exactly why this country has an affordability problem to begin with. Democrats right now are campaigning on fixing a problem that they themselves created under Joe Biden by printing trillions of dollars and lighting it on fire. And now they're just pinning it on Trump because he's been in office for about 8-9 months, and he didn't have the magic wand to just take us back to 2019 prices through deflation. Democrats selling a remedy for a cost of living disease that they gave us. That's the Afton Ben story, and their remedy, of course, will only make us sicker. All right, Daily Wire host Michael Knowles with us tonight, and he's a Nashville guy, and I know this is not going to be your district. She won't represent you if she wins in this election, but it's close enough, and I think it's where your church is as well. So let's talk about Afton Ben here. I mean, there's so much to say, and she's ridiculous on about every subject matter you can think of, but she really is kind of the prototype of the delusional young American female that we've seen a lot of in our society in the last 10 or 15 years.
Yes, I do fear for better and for worse, this is the bellwether for the midterms and the future of the Democrat Party and maybe for the country. Yeah. As you say, I'm happily in Andy Ogles' district, so it won't affect my home. I might have to change religions, though, because my church is, as you say, in her district. This race should not be this tight. This is a 2-point race, last we all checked, and that was with a 4-point margin of error. So, this should be a very Republican district. Obviously, it's an off year. It's an off year. And she's run a very good campaign. Her name and her message are everywhere. But she's so cartoonishly villainous. She's running on a platform of hating her city that if she wins, I think we're going to have to start white knuckling as we look ahead at the midterms.
Right. And let's just give people a little taste of that. She wants to represent a pretty sizable chunk of Nashville and a pretty sizable chunk of the state as well. Here's what she thinks of the city of Nashville.
I've been heavily involved with the Nashville mayoral race because I hate the city, I hate the bachelorettes, I hate the pedal taverns, I hate country music, I hate all of the things that make Nashville apparently an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
And just to, I mean, that's enough right there, but she's from Knoxville, so she is a Tennessee girl. And what's so scary, Michael, is that she has so much support, that there's that many people in our society that are capable of this level of self-hatred, not just for themselves, but of the stable, prosperous place that raised and produced them. I mean, this is a young woman that's had a very privileged life, living in the West, living in a safe, content area of the world that had everything she could have ever needed, and she just loathes it.
This reminds me of Barack Obama in many ways. When Obama ran in 2008, he said that he wanted to fundamentally transform the country. Yeah. And a lot of us said, well, hold on, that's a red flag, because you don't want to fundamentally transform things that you love. You don't say to your wife, hey, honey, I love you so much, I want to fundamentally transform you. So that represented a kind of hostility to his country. Same thing with her. People are scratching their heads. They're saying, wait, you hate Nashville, you hate Tennessee. In another video, she calls East Tennessee a godforsaken country, and yet she wants to come serve Tennessee in Congress? No, obviously not. She wants to change it. She's running not out of a patriotic love of the community. She hates the community, and she wants to impose her will on it. This has become commonplace in the Democrat Party, and unfortunately, she might win.
Yeah, and then that's kind of what I was getting at. A lot of the monologue was just there's only privilege can create what this is, this epidemic that we have in our society of her. And there's so much. I live in New York. I mean, that girl is everywhere in New York. And it's just like, I mean, these are girls that were raised by well-off families in beautiful suburbs and just hate everything. And no matter what the subject matter is, what's the most destabilizing, farthest left, most toxic thing we can do to it? That's what I want to do to it. And it's like that is born from a privilege where you just believe that all of the stability and prosperity of our society is just automatic, and that we're all just entitled to that in a society. And now we can go for the fundamental change because we have that as a baseline. That's not the way society works. We can fall far as hell from where we are, and we can plummet down to where other societies in this world are, and they don't seem to realize that.
It certainly could be. And so depending on what happens with this race, people are going to say, oh, yikes, if this is the new crop of Democrat, we're in for a rough midterm in 2028. But don't forget, what's going to start happening immediately is that the other Republicans in Congress are going to take this as a sign that they're going to get clobbered in the midterms. I think you're going to see more retirements and resignations, a la Marjorie Taylor Greene. So it poses a big problem, not just for people in parts of Nashville, but for the country at large and for the Trump administration. There's already a razor-thin Republican majority in the House. Over the next, not 2 years, over the next 6 months, you could see a great deal of difficulty for Republicans to get anything across the line in Congress.
Yeah. There's a reason they're dumping all this money into this election. They're trying. They want to make Republicans very nervous. They want to send out a signal, and it's working to some effect. We'll see how this election goes. But the fact that it's even tight is what's shocking, and there's a reason for that. Michael Knowles, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Tudor Dixon, host of the Tudor Dixon podcast, joins us now. How do you diagnose the mental disorder inside these young women that seem to seek to destroy the entire country with every political position that they take?
I think it's simply loneliness and jealousy. I mean, if you look at what she's complaining about in Nashville, it's bachelorette parties, people getting married, young families. Those are the things that she doesn't like. Generally, when you see someone complaining about stuff like that, that's jealousy. And yet she wants to go into a position of power and change it. And Democrats are on board with that. I think that's the part that we need to be concerned about. You now can threaten to kill your opponent's children and get elected. You can say you hate the area you want to represent and potentially get elected. I mean, it is way too close for this woman to be this close to getting this seat is shocking. As a Democrat now, it literally does not matter what you say. If you have a D behind your name, these people will come out and blindly vote for you. And that is meaningful for Republicans in the midterms. Come 2026, we need to rethink how we look at elections because it literally doesn't matter how awful they are.
We've been talking about this week, women and the liability of the politics of young women in this country, what it could mean for this republic. In New York, we saw 82% of women between 18 and 29 vote for Zohran Mamdani. This is a communist Islamist mayoral candidate. Our friend Emily Wilson, who goes by Emily Saves America, who we have on this show, said last week that she's realized that all of the problems in this country, she says, would be solved immediately if women were not allowed to vote. What do you make of a comment like that?
Oh, I disagree with that. I obviously don't want that to be the case. We have many women that are Republicans, strong women that are Republicans that come out and vote for Republicans every single time. Women are very valuable to us. As a woman myself, I hate to see that young women are having their minds twisted like this. I think it's happening at universities. I know that it's happening in high schools, that even from the time we're in elementary school, we've got this indoctrination in our schools. But I absolutely disagree that women should ever have any rights taken away. Our voices are valuable. We need to make sure that women are being treated correctly in the school system so that they know that they're voting against their, I mean, this woman is talking about taking away policing and allowing women to just be raped on the streets. Yeah. Women have to stand up against that.
Yeah, stop arresting people for rape was a position that she took. Can you imagine the rape numbers in a city that attempted that? I mean, it's surreal. No matter what the issue, pick the craziest possible thing, and that's what you support. That's a lot of self-hatred, and that's a lot of hatred for the society that brought her up. She needs to be on a couch with a shrink, I think, not in politics. Tudor, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Right, thank you.
We appreciate it. All right, Trump responds to media claims of a war crime in the Caribbean.
I want those boats taken out, and if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea.
So this is all about Venezuela, right? Well, Senator Rand Paul is partnering with Democrats to stop the White House from bombing inside the interior of Venezuela. We've got the senator up next.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
Every day, bumps and bangs happen. Bruises are optional. Used daily, dermatologist recommended Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream can help restore your skin's natural barrier and reduce the appearance of bruises. If you have mature skin and bruise easily, get Dermend Moisturizing Bruise Cream in the first aid aisle and get back to having way too much fun.
Sono Bello helped me get back my sparkle this season.
This year, look amazing in every holiday photo with Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
Before I would hide in the back of photographs, I didn't expect the results to be this good. I'm so happy about it.
This holiday, save 50% on the area you're most excited to change. Tummy, waist, arms, thighs, you choose.
I got lipo done on my stomach and also on my arms as well. Best decision ever.
Sono Bello permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin, all in just one visit with less downtime.
All the fat was gone.
When I saw myself in the dress, I knew I was about to live my best life.
Call 800-665-0288 to save 50% on your first area this holiday. Appointments are filling fast.
Run, do it. Because if you can feel half of what I feel, totally worth it.
This is a limited time offer. Save 50% on your first area. Call Sono Bello today.
As we mark 250 years of America, Wounded Warrior Project honors those who serve. They've given us their commitment and sacrifice. We're here to give them a brighter future. Our programs and services help warriors access VA benefits, improve mental and physical health, and thrive for a lifetime. They've given us their best. Join us in supporting them through the next 250 years of strength and resilience. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/USA250.
It's the Blue Compass RV annual Blue Tag clearance. Save over 40% on select new RVs during our largest sale of the year. Plus, every RV comes with a 1-year VIP membership to RV Complete, a $5,000 value. Visit us online or in store today.
Between drained investment accounts, lost wages, and hiring lawyers, identity theft can cost you more than you might think. Only LifeLock offers the $1 Million Protection Package with reimbursement up to $3 million. LifeLock. Join today.
Every boat that you see get blown up, we save 25,000 on average lives. 25,000 lives. To me, it was an attack. It wasn't 1 strike, 2 strikes, 3 strikes. Somebody asked me a question about the second strike. I didn't know about the second strike. I hear the gentleman that was in charge of that is extraordinary. He's an extraordinary person. I want those boats taken out. And if we have to, we'll attack on land also, just like we attack on sea.
All right, you hear the president right there from the cabinet meeting this afternoon responding to Washington Post reporting that War Secretary Pete Hegseth delivered a verbal order to kill everyone before a second strike on shipwrecked survivors during a September 2nd drug boat strike in the Caribbean. It's a claim that the secretary is denying, and surprisingly, the New York Times denying it as well, saying Hegseth ordered a legal attack, but not the killing of survivors. So New York Times coming out against the Washington Post reporting. Some on the left are using the Post reporting, though, to validate a potentially treasonous video that was made by 6 members of Congress a couple weeks ago, telling our military to blow off orders from the president if they believe them to be illegal. Here was Rachel Maddow on that.
So now we know. Now we know why President Trump and his administration got so freaked out when Democratic lawmakers, military and intelligence veterans who are now in Congress, posted that video reminding American service members that they don't have to follow illegal orders. Now it makes sense why that caused such a freakout, right?
All right, so the ringleader of that video, Senator Mark Kelly, had this reaction to the Washington Post story on his CNN appearance on Sunday. Take a listen.
Do you believe if there was a second strike to eliminate any survivors, that constitutes a war crime?
It seems to. If that is true, if what has been reported is accurate, I've got serious concerns about anybody in that chain of command, stepping over a line that they should never step over.
Okay, so there's where it all stands right now. Senator Rand Paul joins us tonight. He intends to join Democrats if the White House moves any further on this with Venezuela and strikes inside the nation, the communist nation of Venezuela. He's with us tonight. Senator, good to see you again. You're joining with some some interesting people that are not very favorable to the president, and obviously people that are very, I think, hypocritical when it comes to these kinds of policies. Tell us why.
I look at it as joining with the Constitution. The Constitution's pretty clear that war only occurs when Congress votes on it. We also have very clear rules in our country that say that when someone is out of combat or has been bombed into submission, if they're clinging from the wreckage of a boat, if they are shipwrecked, if they're hanging from a parachute and they're helpless, that they are no longer in combat and are not eligible to be killed. So there are some real questions here. If a first strike was ordered, there's a question whether those people were in combat, whether they were armed or what they were doing that made them combatants. But there's an even more in question, someone who is shipwrecked, someone who's clinging to wreckage, whether they can be killed. It appears to me that people who have previously been very supportive of the bombing, such as Lindsey Graham, the Wall Street Journal, and others, are now saying that clearly we're not allowed to bomb people who are shipwrecked. So I think the proof is in the details, and we should see the videos, and we should hear from them. And I actually don't like sort of pinning the blame on the military. They have a tough job as it is. I think if there is blame to go around here, if someone bombed someone who was shipwrecked, that should go to the person who created the policy, not necessarily the soldier who's trying to do his job.
Yeah, well, we'll see where all of this goes with the shipwreck. I want to talk more broadly about Venezuela in general. The president and Maduro spoke over the phone last week. Miami Herald got a lot of the information of that, saying that Trump told Maduro, you can save yourself and those closest to you, but you must leave the country now. Reuters reporting that Maduro has suggested that he would get full amnesty and removal of sanctions if he were to leave. Trump didn't like that. You're out against this war fully. I think the broader GOP is more with the president on this. Let me just ask you this, though. If he can force Maduro to leave and do it without actually striking inside Venezuela, I feel like that would be considered a net gain. If we're actually trying to get rid of the Chinese influence in Latin America, if we're actually trying to move communism, off of being so close to our shores, why would that be necessarily a bad thing? It's pretty clear the president doesn't want to start a war, and he's trying to use every lever he can to get this guy out without doing that. Would that be such a bad thing?
If we're looking at degrees of evil, there's a lot of evil in the world. Should we use that kind of force to get rid of President Xi from China? Should we use that kind of force to get rid of a half a dozen tin-pot dictators around the world? There's a lot of authoritarianism. There's a lot of socialism that I object to. I wrote a book called The Case Against Socialism, describing how awful the socialism is in Venezuela. But that doesn't mean that regime change always works or is a good idea. The president, one of the reasons I've always supported President Trump is that he was one who was opposed to the regime change in Iraq. He was one that was also opposed to the regime change in Libya. Right. And those led to disasters and decades of war and trillions of U.S. dollars. So I'm not for war. And if you have to have war, it should be done in a constitutional fashion. It should go to Congress, and Congress should declare the war.
And I understand that. Why do you think that changed with him, though? I mean, and I got 20 seconds because I want to get to healthcare with you. But why do you think he suddenly is pushing? He's obviously trying to push Maduro out.
Marco Rubio. I think Marco Rubio's always wanted to have regime change in Venezuela, and I think he's giving him bad advice.
Giving him bad advice. Okay. Interesting summation of that, and I don't disagree that might be what's happening, because something clearly has changed. Somebody that was never a pro-war guy, and suddenly this is interesting. I don't necessarily disagree with him, because I see the evil of that of what Maduro has done too. But it is interesting. I want to pivot and talk about healthcare before I let you go, though. Politico says the Senate is barreling toward failure on health care is a headline that came out this week. You've got a plan to combine two different bills, Health Savings Account for All and the Health Marketplace for All Act. You say it takes on insurance companies as the president has called for. Everybody's trying to figure out how we're going to replace Obamacare. We've complained about it forever. Tell us your plan.
So we shouldn't take the Obamacare subsidies and just give them to people to put in their health savings accounts. That's just a continuation of Obamacare Light. Won't bring prices down at all. In fact, healthcare premiums will continue to go through the roof. My plan legalizes the ability for an individual to go on Amazon or Costco or Sam's Club and use them as a purchasing agent for their insurance. Be like joining a collective or a co-op where they come together and they use the size and leverage to negotiate lower prices. Costco's got like 44 million members. What if you joined them and one person at Costco negotiated with United Healthcare or with Blue Cross? I think they would be able to negotiate rates down. So my plan would negotiate rates down. I would also let everybody have an HSA. Currently, only about 10% of people have an HSA. I had 3 kids go through braces, orthodontics. They're incredibly expensive, but it was a lot better for me than people who don't have an HSA. I've always had an HSA, so I was able to fund 3 kids' braces through that. Every American should have that privilege that I was able to have, and we shouldn't limit HSAs. Everybody should get one. You should be allowed to have a gym membership. You should be allowed to buy vitamins, do things for your health. There's a lot of things you should be able to do with your HSA. So I would expand HSAs and let you buy your insurance through a cooperative like Amazon or Costco.
Yeah, and that's great ideas. It's in 10 seconds. Are you confident that the GOP is going to be able to come up with a better plan than Obamacare was? Because that's a big vulnerability politically.
Well, I've been communicating with President Trump over this, and he just recently put something out on social media indicating that he may well be receptive to my association health plan. So we're going to try to work with the president, see if we can get this done.
Okay, Senator Rand Paul, good conversation. Thank you, sir. All right, coming up here after the break, Trump rips Somalian refugee turned Congresswoman Ilhan Omar right at the end of the cabinet meeting. That is next.
I've been taking Balance of Nature 3-4 years now.
It's fruits and vegetables in our daily diet.
And it's real. It smells like fruits and vegetables.
Balance of Nature, I trust the simplicity of what it is.
I know that you need a balance of fruits and vegetables. I mean, my grandma told me that, my mom told me that. What's there to lose in taking Balance of Nature?
This offer is being extended. When you purchase your first set as a new preferred customer, get a free variety snack pack, absolutely free with your order.
Harry and David is small batch, gourmet, and delicious. So, of course, they run out fast. Celebrate the joy of giving with hand-picked holiday delights from Harry and David. Iconically American, delicious traditions made to share. Order now before they're gone.
They killed her brother. They shot her dog. And they took her hostage for 400 days and terrifying nights. They raped her. They put guns to her head. They starved her. These are the stories of Israeli women attacked by Hamas. If you are supporting Hamas and radicalized Palestinians, this is what you are supporting. Choose freedom, not terror.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Do you know which investment has outperformed almost every other asset class since the beginning of last year? And that Goldman Sachs research is now forecasting to reach further heights. That's right, it's gold. Central banks around the world continue to buy gold at record levels due to economic turmoil, foreign conflicts, and a weakening U.S. economy plagued by debt. If you're concerned how to protect yourself as our financial system weakens, our team at Swiss America has a solution. For over 40 years, we've helped people just like you purchase precious metals for home delivery and for your IRAs. Don't miss out before this next big price jump. Call or text Swiss America at the number on your screen to receive your free portfolio review and a copy of The Timeless Truth About Gold and Silver. Let us show you how easy it is to safeguard your money. Call or text Swiss America today.
You can't go out there. You'll never make it. But I reckon I got to. I'm 45. It's time to screen for colon cancer. Will I ever see you again? I love you. Also, I'm just going to the porch.
I knew that. It's true. The Cologuard test comes to you.
Just ask your provider or request online.
That way you can screen for colon cancer on your terms. It's effective and non-invasive.
False positive and negative results may occur. It is not for those at high risk. Skip the drama. Ask your provider or request Cologuard online.
When it comes to my daily heart health supplement, I've got 3 rules. It's got to be plant-based, it's got to be doctor recommended, and it's got to be Super Beets from Human.
Discover why Super Beets is the #1 cardiologist recommended beet brand for heart health support at livehuman.com.
PCmatic's Black Friday and Cyber Monday deals are going on now. For a limited time, when you buy PCmatic Antivirus, you get PCmatic VPN for free. Protect up to 5 devices with our easy-to-use American-made security. You get award-winning antivirus, lightning-fast VPN for total privacy, plus limited US-based phone support. Get industry-leading protection that's built by Americans to protect America. Don't wait. Visit PCMedic.com now before it's too late.
Welcome back. This was an interesting day. The president was on TV like all day long, and he dropped the hammer this afternoon right at the end of his cabinet meeting, fed up with our country's suicidal immigration policies that have brought loads of refugees seeking welfare and entitlements into this already debt-ridden country. And the president tore into Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, one of the most obnoxious, a Somali congresswoman, a former refugee, and other third world immigrants that he says are leeching off of the empathy of Americans. Take a listen to this.
The welfare is like 88%. They contribute nothing. I don't want them in our country, I'll be honest with you. Okay? Somebody would say, oh, that's not politically correct. I don't care. Our country's at a tipping point. We're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage. These aren't people that work. These aren't people that say, let's go, come on, let's make this place great. These are people that do nothing but complain. But when they come from hell and they complain and do nothing but we don't want them in our country.
Man's got a point. You come here from a terrible country and you come here to systemically change the nation that rescued you. Your first priority when you get here is to get into Congress and to start subverting the nation that rescued you and try to turn it into a much worse country, a country with a much better chance of failing, policies that will fail, collectivism, Marxism, things like that. You come from Somalia, that's what you bring. Somali fraud gangs, the other side of this, have stolen $1 billion in the state of Minnesota. There's only about 100,000 of those people in Minnesota, and they've stolen $1 billion. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem also revealing 50% of the immigration visas obtained by the Somali community in Minnesota are fraudulent. Half the visas of the refugees from Somalia are fraudulent. This week, Trump alleged that Ilhan Omar got in by marrying her own brother, which is a common scheme in that community. ICE now reportedly launching a new operation primarily targeting the Somalis in Minneapolis and St. Paul. 100 ICE agents going after about, as I said, 100,000 Somali refugees living in those areas. Gene Hamilton joins us now, Deputy White House counsel during Trump's first term. 50% fraudulent in the Somali community, according to the DHS secretary. That's an insane number.
Yeah, it absolutely is insane, and it shows you the extent of the fraud that's not just from that particular country, but from so many countries across the world. And what was absolutely insane is the fact that people knew this. This was common sense. For anyone in the immigration world, this was common sense. There is so much fraud that is done upon the United States government in the immigration process, yet people were just okay to let it happen. They were fine to just continue to let people to come into the United States, knowing that they couldn't verify their documents, knowing that they couldn't verify who they were, knowing that they were lying throughout the process, and still encouraging them to come in.
And there's no, and nobody can explain to us what the net gain for this country is of bringing third world refugees into the country. The only net gain is political to the Democrat Party. That's the reason that we bring these people in so rapidly, because they are, again, trying to change the electorate into something that needs government, that needs more government. Do you think we're going to get to, do you think DHS is going to review? It's only 100,000 people. It wouldn't be hard to review those visas. And if 50,000 of them are fraudulent, do they get shipped off?
Rob, I think that you are going to see a holistic effort from the United States government. President Trump already rightly suspended the entry of people from Somalia and from other countries earlier this year from coming into the United States. The natural thing to do, the next step would be to review the status of people who are already here, who've committed offenses, committed crimes, they've done things that make them deportable, and then to go ahead and go through the process of deporting them.
Yeah, an intelligent, sophisticated country, which we once were, brings in people that can contribute and grow the society and make it stronger. You don't bring in people that immediately need to get on the dole and want to just take from society perpetually forever. You don't bring in third world refugees if you're a smart country. You just don't do it. Gene Hamilton, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
What it does to people, the instances of people that have been not necessarily completely dead when they've been harvesting their organs.
All right, so that was back in July, and tonight we have an update to this shocking story that we brought you from over the summer. Congressman Jason Smith leading an investigation into a massive organized organ harvesting scandal right here in the United States, something you think about in a third world country happening right here. It's fueled by greed and leading to shocking levels of fraud and crimes such as hospitals harvesting the organs of patients that in some cases are still alive. In some cases, patients that are still moving as their organs are removed from their bodies. A congressional hearing today on the organ procurement industry to review findings from this investigation, featuring a witness named Heather Knuckles, a Missouri woman whose mother died a few years back after a liver and kidney transplant. Except the liver that her mother received contained high-grade metastatic cancer. Her mom died just 2.5 months after that transplant. Heather Knuckles joins us now. We're going to speak to her about that, along with Congressman Jason Smith, and to you both, thanks for coming on tonight. And Congressman, I just want to start with you because the thought of somebody still alive having an organ taken from their body in the United States is so shocking. What have you guys been able to find throughout this investigation, sir?
You know, it's absolutely unacceptable. That should never happen. There was 48,000 donor recipients last year. We have to make sure that people are safe and certain whenever they either donate their organs or they receive organs. And for one thing, they need to make sure that they're dead. We've had multiple whistleblowers come before us ever since we started this investigation, and it's quite alarming. And that's why we've pointed out different organ procurement organizations in New Jersey, Kentucky, Florida, that we've asked for additional information because we need to hold them accountable, and it's about time to bring them back into Congress.
It's an unbelievable story, especially happening here in this country. Heather, your story is just heartbreaking, and I can't imagine what it's like to lose your mom and then have to testify about it on Capitol Hill. But thanks for being so brave to do it. Tell us a little bit of your story, if you can.
Well, my mother had fatty liver disease, which evolved into cirrhosis, and she got on the transplant list. And she received a liver and a kidney from a donor, which was transplanted into her on October 30th of 2022. She did very well and woke up alert, happy. She was getting her appetite back. And about 3 days later, transplant surgeons came forward and told us that the donor liver had metastatic cancer. And I mean, she ended up she was put back on the transplant list and got a retransplant of a second liver. And for 3 weeks, she was completely out of her mind. She was delirious, she hallucinated, and at times had her wrist strapped to a bed. It took her a while. It took her about a month to remember even who we were when we were at her bedside. And also, the kidney from the original donor they left in her developed it had a cyst in it at the time of transplant. It was ill too. It wasn't well. Yeah. And she that kidney just survived on a nephrostomy bag. And my mom passed. She ended up on life support, and she passed on January 13th of 2023, 2.5 months after the first transplant.
It's a horrible story. And Congressman, there was testimony today about organ procurement organizations using Medicaid money on things like vacations, on limousines. How much work does this industry need to do to get itself back on track? How much are you guys finding?
We're finding all kinds of stuff, whether it's Medicare fraud, whether it's making sure that there's not proper scanning of organs, whether it's the fact that we saw one procurement organization that threw away 100 pancreases. Like, you can't make this up, how they have been so rogue, and that's why we're looking into it, is to hold them accountable. We need to make sure that Americans have faith in organ donations and also receiving organs. There's 100,000 people, Rob, that are waiting for organ donations right now. 48,000 just last year alone received them. We need to make sure that they're protected.
Certainly do. Heather, thanks so much for coming on. Congressman Jason Smith, thank you both for the time. A very unusual story, a heartbreaking story, but thank you. All right, coming up here after the break, the Trump White House wants your help finding fake news. That's next.
The standard for journalism, unfortunately, has dropped to such a historic low in this country.
Hi, I'm Steve.
I'm Lee, and we live in North Pole, Alaska.
I was noticing my hearing was not so good, so I got hearing aids. My vision was not as good as it used to be. Got a change in prescription, but I was missing something for my brain. I saw a Prevagen commercial, and I thought, that makes sense.
I observed the changes in Steve. I thought I should try that too.
After taking Prevagen, I just didn't have to work so hard.
Prevagen has been the #1 selling brain supplement nationwide for over 10 years.
Israel, the birthplace of our faiths for Christians and Jews. That Christmas morning, wise men brought gifts from outside the Holy Land. But in this year of war, this holy land and her people are living in fear, and many of the elderly are alone and suffering. Like the wise men or wise women, would you open your heart and give a special holiday food box to someone here in Israel this Christmas, Hanukkah season?
Right now, the hardships in Israel are felt by everyone. People like Hannah, who can't buy food. That is where the fellowship comes in. That's where the fellowship is called. Baruch Hashem. To feed the hungry.
Happy Hanukkah.
Through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, your special holiday gift of just $25 can answer their prayers this Hanukkah and Christmas season.
It's people like Chaya that you can touch.
Please call, scan, or go online now to help rush emergency food and healing to elderly Jews and their Christian neighbors struggling to rebuild their lives from the war.
You are a Christian. Those words of Isaiah, that the Spirit of the Lord is upon you. There we go. You're bringing hope. You're bringing tomorrow on the table to her and to so many others. What will happen, amen, when tens of millions of Christians and millions of Jews together, we make this holy day season holy indeed.
Elmer Heinrich here. I'm in the mineral and nutritional supplement business, and I'm here to tell you that there's hundreds of nutritional supplements on the market, but very few have more than 8 or 9 minerals. Now, you might consider Immuno 150. This incredible product has 70 plant-derived minerals and 80 other nutrients. Now, minerals are the most important of all nutrients, but due to topsoil mineral depletion, our present-day foods have 70% fewer minerals than many years ago. I believe the world is sick due to a lack of mineral in our food, so think about Immuno 150. There's nothing like it, and I mean nothing. Now, 70 minerals can do wonders to improve your health. Look at the videos on our website and consider placing an order for Immuno 150 online or call our toll-free number. See what 70 minerals and 80 of the best nutrients can do for you. Like thousands of others, you won't believe the results. Order now.
The White House today launched a new fake news portal, which I found interesting. What is your objective with that?
There are so many fake stories that are unfortunately written that have inaccurate characterizations of meetings that took place, and it's all based on anonymous sourcing. And, you know, the standard for journalism, unfortunately, has dropped to such a historic low in this country.
There you go. The White House launching a new page on its website, exposing media outlets, biases, false reporting, inaccurate stories, anonymous sourcing. Trump has been leveled by this kind of activity for 10 years now. Recently, the BBC edited Trump's January 6th speech in a really blatantly dishonest manner to make it appear that he called for violence on January 6th. That's just one of the latest examples. Remember 60 Minutes editing Kamala's interview to make her look intelligent on a very important subject right before the election, trying to boost her into power. last October, that interview was, just before the election. And just last week, when an Afghan refugee shot 2 National Guardsmen, New York Times, with a very politicized version of the story, saying that Trump is using National Guard shooting to cast suspicion on refugees at a time in a week when 2 Afghan refugees, one was arrested for making a threat to blow up, I think, a city in Texas, and the other one shot 2 National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. Trump today calling out reporters for obsessing about his health as well. Another part of the fake news. They obsess constantly about his MRI, his health. When he's in front of cameras every single day, he was in front of the cameras for hours today, ad-libbing through the whole thing, answering questions off the top of his head. The same people that told us Biden was in good health for 4 years can't stop talking about Trump's health.
I sit here, I do 4 news conferences a day. I ask questions from very intelligent lunatics, you people. I give the right answers. You can't find anything, but you do stories about Biden was in wonderful health. The guy didn't do a news conference for 8 months. If I go one day, I had one day where I didn't do a news conference, there's something wrong with the president. You people are crazy.
They are crazy. They are crazy. Kaelan Dorr is the White House Deputy Communications Director. He joins us now from the White House. This was your idea to kind of showcase how fake the media can be from the White House website. Kaelan, tell what we're trying to do here.
Well, thank you guys for having me on tonight. I really appreciate it, and I don't want to take sole credit for any one idea. This team here that the president has built has been incredible, from Stephen Chung, from Caroline Leavitt, the whole crew. This is something we wanted to do from day one because, as you can tell, the ethos here at this White House is offense. We're constantly on offense here, and I think it's about time that the federal government served the American people in this way, and that when you think about it, you know, they did everything that they did for the last 4 years under Joe Biden in broad daylight. They, you know, the legacy media, bad actors in public sector, and the bad actors here at the White House during the previous administration, they thought so little of you and me and people at home that they did all this in broad daylight. They wanted to gaslight you into thinking what was happening in front of your very eyes wasn't real, wasn't actually happening. And so we took it upon ourselves to come out here and give the American public another resource. I think it's very important that the marketplace of ideas continues to thrive and people have a place to go to look for the truth. There's a lot of fake news out there, and we are by no means going to be sitting on our laurels during this because there's a lot of things to sift through.
I think on presidential health, I think was maybe the place where it's the most obvious, and that's where it was hit today. I mean, for all those years under Biden, especially the last 2, to watch the media try so desperately to just prop up the idea that he was still a stable commander-in-chief when everybody knew he wasn't. And then when Trump gets in, I mean, they obsess over his health. This guy, I mean, what did he do? The president today, he wouldn't get off TV. It gets to a point where it's actually annoying in our newsroom because we have work to do, and it's like he's still going. He's still talking on television, and we got to put a show together. I can't sit here for 5 hours watching Trump talk and answer questions on television. That's the way it is. It's so fake. The way that they present, the way that they cover the health of the American president, just the juxtaposition between the last 2 presidents is the biggest indicator I know of that'll show you just how fake the media can be.
Well, 1,000%. I mean, no one who's ever occupied this White House has the stamina that this president has. He's done more open press events. He's been on television more times in just the first 6 months of this administration that Joe Biden was in the whole entire 4 years. And what I love about this president and the work that we're doing is that people are hungry for it and they love it. They love what we're doing here. We're providing the most transparent administration in our nation's history. And quite frankly, as we go through in the topic of media bias, I do want to share with you, we are opening it up to the American public to be a part of this process because they are so hungry for real information on what's going on. And so, as of the viewing of this show tonight, if you text the word bias to 45470, we are inviting folks to please report to us biased articles, so that way we can go through and provide pushback, and they will all live on our website as a resource for everyone, because you deserve to know the truth. That is the job of the federal government, is not to gaslight you, to tell you that you're wrong or you're crazy. It is to simply go out there, provide tangible quality of life improvements for the American people, and then communicate them accurately.
That's great. That's great. Kaelan Dorr from the Communications Department over at the White House. Kaelan, thanks so much. Great idea. We appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely, brother. Take care.
All right, you too. All right, the woke city of Portland refusing to say Christmas when they talk about the big tree that they've put up. News from the left is next.
I'd like to encourage you all to come down to Portland often, to come down and enjoy the tree.
It all started in 2022 when the Biden administration weaponized the U.S. dollar and imposed sanctions upon Russia. Central banks around the globe moved out of dollar-denominated assets and into gold. Jamie Dimon said gold could easily go to $5,000 or $10,000 an ounce. Gold recently surpassed its inflation-adjusted all-time high. Silver's inflation-adjusted all-time high is $209 an ounce. Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 1-800-778-4156.
Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide, home of the No Fee for Life IRA. See how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver.
Call now, 1-800-778-4156.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone.
I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our Restoration Guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. If you ever wondered what Christmas is like in one of the world's most insufferably woke cities, we're going to take you to Portland, Oregon, where the hosts of the Christmas tree lighting ceremony could not even bring themselves to say the word Christmas while standing next to a 50-foot Christmas tree.
Since the tree's delivery 2 weeks ago, the Square's event production team of 7 have been busy assembling the tree.
The tree that we stand beside was once rooted in its own home.
This is Stimson Lumber's 24th year providing the tree. Look forward to many more years providing the tree. I'd like to encourage you all to come down to Portland often, to come down and enjoy the tree.
I mean, not really surprising. It's Portland, Oregon. That's not all from this event. Here is a woman holding a Palestinian flag, because what says Christmas more than a chant of free, free, free Palestine? Take a listen.
So I felt like this was a perfect time to put them up there, and for your guys' prayers for every single one of the Palestinians and all the oppressed peoples around the globe. And so if I could get a free, free Palestine, free, free Palestine.
I'd be a little scared something's going to blow up. You start hearing that at a Christmas tree lighting, whatever that is. All right. That's Portland, Oregon Christmas, though, for you, in case you wanted to go check it out. The president seems really annoyed with people who take Ozempic. That is next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream to target neuropathy symptoms.
The stabbing, burning pain in your feet is real. Here's what real customers have to say about MagnaLife Pain Relieving Foot Cream, the only thing that works for my diabetic neuropathy.
Available in foot care and diabetic aisles.
Radical jihadists are not done. Iran promises death to America. They've built sleeper terror cells in the U.S. They support terror groups out to destroy Israel, including Hamas, whose founding charter calls for Islam to dominate the world.
The young people have been educated to believe that the most sacred thing they do is stab a Christian in the heart.
The only democracy in the Middle East that supports religious freedom is Israel. Standing for freedom, not terror.
You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult. But that's why I love the Signal Relief Patch. It's helped me enjoy the holidays again. Join the thousands who have experienced relief and get 30% off your Signal Relief Patch today. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers I've seen in pain.
Signal Relief is truly giving me my happiness back.
The Signal Relief Patch puts pain on the back burner.
The Signal Relief Patch has been life-changing.
This is too good to be true. It's too easy.
In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. This patch was a game changer for me, and it can be for you too. Trust me, the patch works.
Big news. Newsmax just went public on the New York Stock Exchange and listed on the big board. Millions of Americans like you are joining our news revolution. Reuters Institute says Newsmax is one of the top 12 news brands in America. 40 million Americans go to Newsmax all the time, and its audience grew 50% since the same time last year. Millions really are making the switch to Newsmax. If you want to be a Newsmax share owner, call your broker advisor or get more info at newsmaxinvest.com. Stand with Newsmax today for a strong America.
All right, well, if you caught the end of the cabinet meeting tonight and the comments on Somalia, you realize the president wasn't really politically correct today, although he made some very, very, very valid points. He also had some harsh comments for the Ozempic crowd out there as the country is magically getting skinnier and skinnier. Trump again going after the fat drug. Take a listen.
So we're paying, as an example, for the, let's go with the fat drug, FAT, for fat people. Anybody use it at the table? Don't ask.
Anybody use it at the table? Don't ask. I don't think he likes the fact that people have this little cheat drug and are just getting skinny, popping this pill. I don't think he likes it.
I
Whatever
love how
shot it is.
at 79 he has to clarify that it's not PHAT. We're talking FAT.
FAT.
And the rest of the media is like, you know, he's reminding us of Joe Biden. It's like Joe Biden didn't have a brain for 4 years. There's no comparison between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Good to see it. Rob, by the way, Christmas outfit tonight. I like it.
Yeah, right? A little red.
It's time.
Why not?
I'm getting close.
All right.
All right.